Good evening and welcome to the April 24th, 2023 meeting of the Planning Board of the Town of Chatham. My name is Catherine Halpern. I'm Chair of the Planning Board of the Town of Chatham. This meeting is being conducted in a hybrid format. I'll read you a few points on that in just a moment. Please also note that this meeting is being recorded and will be available shortly hereafter for scheduled and on-demand viewing on any smartphone or tablet device. If anyone else is recording the meeting, please notify the chair. It's all right to record the meeting, but we do need to be notified. I'll just see if any hands are raised by those connected remotely. I don't see any hands. All right, so we'll go ahead. Pursuant to Governor Healy's March 29th, 2023 signing of the Acts of 2023 extending certain COVID-19 measures adopted during the state of emergency, suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law, GLC 30A-20, until March 31st, 2025, this meeting of the Chatham Planning Board is being conducted in person and via remote participation. Every effort will be made to ensure that the public can adequately access the proceedings as provided for in the order. A reminder that persons who would like to listen to this meeting while it is in progress may do so by calling the phone number 1-508-945-4410, and the conference ID number is 608-896-010#. You may also join the meeting online using Microsoft Teams through the link in the agenda that's posted on the town website. While this is a live broadcast and simulcast on Channel 18, as I mentioned, despite our best efforts, we may not be able to provide for real-time access. We will post a record of this meeting on the town's website as soon as possible. That being said, I will start with a roll call of board members. Bob Wirtschafter.
Bob Wirtschafter, present.
Art Spru.
Art Spru, present.
Warren Chain.
Warren Chain, present.
Megan Story.
Megan Story, present.
Charlene Greenhalgh.
Charlene Greenhalgh, present.
Bob Dubus.
Bob Dubus, present.
This is Catherine Halpern. I'm also present. I'm also going to ask if any board members need to recuse themselves from any matters on our agenda tonight. Yes, Mr. Dubus.
Madam Chairman,
Yes.
on John Gilpin Road,
Yes.
I in the past have done some work there, but I don't think it's going to affect any of my decisions tonight, and I'd rather stay here, unless you decide I shouldn't.
I'm just going to check with Ryan if she also considers that all right. I consider it all right. Yeah.
What kind of work have you done?
We did a little bit of sewer work there when they first built it.
Oh, good, then you can speak to it.
I
I
can.
think it's fine.
Yeah. Good. Great. Thank you so much. So first item on the agenda are the minutes from April 10th. Any changes, corrections, additions? Charlene?
Madam Chair, I actually emailed Annie this afternoon.
All right.
She has you included in the vote.
Oh, all right, for Chatham Bars Avenue.
Yes.
Yes, all right,
So
great.
she's aware of that.
All right.
And other than that, I would move approval of the minutes.
Thank you so much for that correction. Any other corrections? All right, can
Bob
I,
Wirtschafter, second.
who made the motion? Charlene, okay, great. All right, let's do a vote. So we're approving the minutes with the correction from Charlene. Bob Wirtschafter?
Bob Wirtschafter, approve.
Art Spru?
Art Spru, approve.
Warren?
Warren Chain, approve.
Megan?
Megan Story, approve.
Charlene?
Charlene Greenhalgh, approve.
And Bob Dubus?
Bob Dubus, proof.
And this is Catherine Halpern. I also approve the minutes from April 10th. Next item on the agenda is the subdivision of John Gilpin Road, satisfaction of conditions, and is Jamie Norcross present to present?
He said his junior partners.
Okay. All right. This is something from the past that needs to be cleared up. Mr. Riley, do you want to just summarize it for us?
Well, my understanding is from my senior partner was that all the work had been done in accordance with the approval of the plan. All conditions have been met, and apparently nobody thought to come and get a certificate. So it's been years, and one of the properties just changed hands. And Mr. Litchfield, ever alert to little title problems, brought this to our attention, so we're here just to clean it up.
All right, and I understand from Ryan that basically we were concerned with the condition for the maintenance of the road, of the way, and that is covered by the covenant, which was put in place subsequent to the statement of conditions. And our files are somewhat incomplete on this. We don't have a record of the release of the statement of conditions, but I'm going to ask the board if there's other questions for Ryan or for Mr. Riley. Bob Wirtschafter? Arthur?
No, I thought the item, section 17 paragraph was okay. It said that each lot owner, by the acceptance of the deed, agrees to pay a prorated share of the costs of operating, maintaining, and repairing the road, and road sign is substantially the same condition as originally built and in its presentable condition. So that, I thought, satisfied our concerns associated with this, so I was okay with.
And I agree with that. That was the sort of piece of information I was looking for, because some of the language in one of the conditions, number 13, identified transferring the property to the town. That never happened, so we just wanted to make sure that there was some sort of responsible party for the maintenance of the road before releasing this. So.
Therefore, I'm fine.
Great, okay. Warren, any questions, concerns?
No questions.
Megan?
No questions.
Charlene?
No questions.
Bob Dupis? Any questions, concerns?
I shook my head, sorry. No
Okay.
questions.
All right, great.
I will say they did at one point, about 5 years ago, had a little drainage issue with the state, and it was remedied. So as far as I know, knowing people down there and driving down there once in a while, that things look in pretty good shape.
Great. So I would ask for a motion to release the statement of conditions. I see Charlene is ready to make the motion. Thank you, Charlene.
You're very welcome. I move that we release the statement of conditions for this subdivision.
Thank you very much. May I have a second to that motion?
Also, Bob Dubus will second.
Great. Bob Wirtschafter?
Bob Wirtschafter, approve.
Art?
Art Sprue, approve.
Warren Chain?
Warren Chain, approve.
Megan Story?
Megan Story, approved.
Charlene?
Charlene Greenhalgh, approve.
Bob Dupis?
Bob Dubus, approve.
And this is Catherine Halper, and I also approve. Thank you, Mr. Riley.
Thank you very much.
Yes, great.
Bill, I think that's about the easiest time you've ever had up here, isn't it?
Well, there was one time I withdrew.
Thank you. So the next item on our agenda is a formal site plan review, which is a continued from April 10th. We did receive additional information on this site plan just this morning, which was emailed out to board members. And so I think before we proceed, I do want to check with planning board members if they've had time to review the late submission and consider it. And again, a note of explanation, what we had anticipated, Vice Chair and Chair had a Ryan had a meeting with the applicant on Friday. Some changes to their stormwater mitigation were requested. We anticipated that the additional submission would be a simple submission of those changes. However, there's a few other changes that are requested by the applicant, and it was not received till this morning by board members. So I just want to ask board members if you feel you've had sufficient time to review the submission so that we should go ahead and consider this matter.
Well, Madam
tonight.
Chair, if
I'd like to ask the board members first, Mr. Riley.
okay, we were just going to offer to continue if you want to do that.
Oh, you wanted to continue?
Well, we don't want to, but we understand. We apologize for the late
We understand,
delivery of
yes.
the information.
Yes, all right, great.
And we'd rather have, time with you, which is spent in dealing with things that are fully understood by everybody, rather
Right.
than, what does this mean, or what does that mean?
Right.
And, so
That
that
was
was, so again, we apologize for the late delivery. I'm going to blame it on Mr. Fournier because he was on vacation. We do have Stephanie here, if anybody has any questions on the drainage But other than that, we'll just request a continuance till your next meeting and come back when it's everybody's
All
up to
right.
speed.
So the next meeting, I think, are we scheduling a May 8th meeting, or do we have to cancel that because of annual town meeting?
We have a May 8th meeting scheduled. There are no applications received for that meeting. So there was discussion in the department to cancel that meeting because it's following the May 6th town meeting, which may be a bit of a long day, but that decision has not been made.
Madam Chairman,
Yes, Mr. Riley.
other than the little drainage
Oh,
issue
Mr. Dubus, I'm sorry.
and one other little issue that I have, what are the other two remaining things to talk about that we were surprised with?
In their submission, I think there were a couple of changes they requested on the conditions, if you read through this. To be honest with you, I didn't even have a chance to read through this till about
Well,
15 minutes before this meeting.
My gut feeling is we should go over it because I don't believe there's much after this. Is that correct?
We have an informal, that's true. We have West Chatham Neighborhood Center, an informal discussion for the board. But our
Sally,
main,
if you wouldn't mind going through it with us again.
Mr. Dubus, I actually would like to poll the board members and see what the whole board,
oh, I thought Bob thought he was in charge for a minute.
yeah, yes.
I know,
right.
because you're ready
They're offering to
walk outta
continue.
here. And I don't want to have to keep going through this thing, because I don't think it's that critical
Right.
of a thing. So if we could just go through the thing quickly and stick on those 2 points that they're asking for. I have 2 that I'd like to say about, and we could get this over with.
All right, let me see how everyone on the board feels, if that's all right. So Charlene, how do you feel? Would you prefer to consider it tonight or to
Not
continue?
knocking his exuberance,
Yes.
however, I'm not fully comfortable, even if they explain it, and everything, I still want to be able to hash through this. The other thing that I was hoping we would have had, and maybe it is in the staff report, but maybe I didn't see it, we had talked about a number of potential conditions. and
Yeah,
I'm not sure they're all there
right.
that we had discussed. And I would like to see those before I'm comfortable, moving
I
forward.
think the staff report, okay.
I think it addressed some of them, but I think there were some that were missing. Your
Right.
list seemed to be more extensive that you had written down.
All right, so let me just, I'm not going to get into discussion now. I just want to see how the board, Megan, tonight, or we'll go for May 8th as long as it's not canceled yet. I mean, would that be acceptable? So it would be tonight or May 8th?
Personally, I'd go with tonight.
Okay. And Warren?
Well, I'm only about halfway through seeing this, so I can't really comment on this from a specific point of view. There is a condition, I think, that's missing, but I could cover that tonight if the board decides to go ahead and listen.
Okay. And Arthur?
I'm the same boat that you're in. I got through some of the conditions, but not all of them, and I haven't had a chance to.
Okay.
As an engineer, I like to do my due diligence, do my research on these things before I actually make a decision on them. So my preference would be the
May 8th, okay.
I'll go with May 8th, that's fine with me.
No, I understand, Bob. I understand what you're saying. I just want to get a sense of the board, Bob. It's not a formal vote. I'm just trying to hear from everybody.
So what I'm hearing is there's some things that we're not going to be able to close tonight. But I also heard that there's some new things that maybe are worth discussing so that when we come on the 8th, we're not then discussing those in a surprise way to them. So I think we serve them better if we discuss the issues now, knowing that we're not going to resolve it, but that we're going to get a much clearer idea of what is needed, and that should be before us, not on the 7th, but maybe on the 4th or something like that. And we can all come to the meeting on the 8th and just say yes, real quickly.
Okay. So it seems to me like I've got 2 for tonight, 2 for the 8th, and 1 for both. Is that an accurate summary?
It seems like we're deferring to you, Catherine.
Yeah, no, that's okay.
Well, Madam Chair,
Yes, Mr. Riley.
so we heard a couple of members say there seem to be conditions missing, so if we knew what those conditions were,
Yeah.
that would be helpful to us as we,
So
you
I'm
know,
going to side with Bob Wertschafter and say some discussion tonight to clarify the issues with what we have before us, but we will intend to continue the final vote until May 8th and just get all the Ts crossed and Is dotted. How does
right.
that sound?
Thank you very much.
Okay, great. All right. So with that, why don't we get started? You've all, I mean, at least seen the memo that came in. Actually, I might ask Ryan if you could comment on the memo and just alert the board to what we need to consider.
Sure. So in the staff report, I attempted to capture the conditions that I heard you
you
all
did,
discussing at the
yes.
last meeting, but it's by no means intended to be an exhaustive list. It was just sort of help frame your discussion tonight. But in the memo, I do just want to point out, because I think it wasn't clear in prior discussions, that the applicant's request is not for seasonal use, it's for year-round use, which they've clarified in their memo, that the outdoor space would be able to be occupied on a year-round basis.
That's
Correct?
correct. We're very concerned about our smokers.
Okay. And so that was one of the main changes. Also let's see, there's an objection to the term seasonal as well as the exclusion dates. Okay. The other change, there's some changes. We did have a meeting, as I mentioned, with Ryan and Arthur, myself, regarding the stormwater mitigation, and there are some changes that need to be made there. I would like to hear from those board members who are concerned about conditions being omitted. I read through Ryan's summary, and to the best of my memory, Ryan included the important conditions that we mentioned. The applicant is requesting some changes to our conditions as presented. I think that's mostly what needs to be considered, as well as the stormwater mitigation. I think Arthur has a solution for that. But the board members who were concerned about the inclusion of all the conditions, I don't have any notes of any that I don't see. Yes,
If you're comfortable that everything you had jotted down was there.
yes.
I just thought there was something that, that Warren I'm trying to remember.
Yes, Madam Chairman.
Yes,
There was-
Warren, go ahead.
There was discussion, and I think it was agreed to, that they should not be using any of the 12 parking spaces for the Chatham, or from the Squire Mobile or other trailers and that sort of thing in the parking lot.
Yeah, I think we agreed to that.
And you would agree to that.
Okay.
We agreed to that.
But if there's no condition to that effect, then there's no condition to that effect.
I don't know if we can add that or need, we can add that as a condition, sure. Okay, great. Thank you, Warren. I had not recalled that.
Can we also include that it can't be parked in the town parking lot as well?
That's a given.
Madam Chair?
Yeah, you can't park
It's my understanding that the owner is getting rid of that trailer altogether.
Okay, all right. That's good. So it seems like it won't be a problem, but we can add that condition, Warren.
Well, it shouldn't be limited only to the Squire Mobile, but, using it to any of the parking spaces that are on the private property shouldn't be used by trailers or other types of support vehicles, because we're already talking about one less parking space than we had before. And it seems it was agreed to, but it ought to just be, for good order's sake, it ought to be conditioned.
Okay. Just that the parking spaces are available for patrons of the restaurant and, yes,
can craft
and
something.
employees.
I was just going to say,
Yeah,
are we
as usual.
excluding employees or are we
No.
not excluding employees? Okay, so
No, usually parking is available for patrons and employees of the restaurant. So we just, but that's standard.
It's always been that way,
Yeah.
employees, and
Yeah.
whoever gets there first.
Yeah. Okay. Were there other concerns from board members about conditions that were not included or anything in the memo that we received this morning? Maybe I'll ask Arthur, please go ahead.
Okay, so in our conversation Friday, just so the board understands, there was a sketch provided to discuss on Friday prior to it being submitted. There was an area that was shown on I don't have a north arrow here. I'm assuming it's on the easterly side of the building. It was 490 square feet. We had talked about also the area along the alley of the existing building, a portion of the roof that would go to the collection system, to the infiltration system. The way I understand we left it is that both areas were going to go into the infiltration system. I don't see that now on here. I wanted to just clarify, did Catherine and I misunderstand? And I also verified this with Ryan.
To the extent there was a misunderstanding or a lack of communication, it really is on the team side, not on the board side. And and part of that's attributable to the fact that Joe was on vacation last week and trying to operate from California.
And doing quite well, I might add.
Well, sure, Joe, whatever you say. But anyway, so the difficulty with providing drainage from the east side of the building is the infrastructure located on the ground between the east side and the west side. And so, because you have the grease trap and the gas line and the sewer pipe and all that. So what we'd prefer to do, and I'll ask Stephanie to address it very briefly, is take the entire west side piping. Well, Stephanie, why don't you describe what you have suggested?
Can I hand these out, or is
Sure.
that going
I'll hand
to be
them out.
more confusing?
I'll hand them out.
Hi, for the record, Stephanie Sequin with Ryder and Wilcox.
Thank you.
And Bill is handing out an even slightly different version of what's up on the screen. After taking a closer look at the various roof lines and talking with Joe about trying to focus on the area of what's currently pavement is going to be removed and replaced with concrete, that being the most the best area to try and put something in the ground because it's going to be dug up anyway. So on this, what was just handed out, I've come up with roughly 570 square feet of roof area that we're now proposing to direct toward gutters and then piped to this proposed leaching area, just, off a little bit to the rear of that roof area. So where we had discussed on Friday, taking the 490 square feet of the roof on the easterly side, we're now proposing to take 570 square feet of the roof area on the westerly side, in addition to connecting that existing downspout that is coming down the west wall right next to where the utility pole is. Right now, that just dumps onto the ground, and we will pipe that over. And you can see the red lines with the arrows indicating how that will be connected to the new leaching system.
Okay.
So it's a little
So-
bit different, but I think still a good deal.
Here's my suggestion on this, because this, I'm not sure the calculations support this at all. I suggest we treat this as dry well. Withdraw your calculations, because they really aren't consistent with what you show in here, which is fine with me. I don't need the calculations for a dry well. I think that you've met the concepts of what we had talked about, of trying to achieve some management of stormwater. You're still going to put the relief system in at the downspout, so If it surcharges, just like a dry well might, it'll do exactly what it does today if you did nothing. So that's my recommendation associated with this. I want to get into defining the infiltration according to the Stormwater Management Handbook, signed and sealed and all that. I don't think we need to do that for this application, so just withdraw your calculations for this and just treat this as a dry well. I think this is a sufficient compromise from what we talked about on Friday.
Okay.
My whole idea is to get some stormwater management in here. You are achieving that, and I think that that would be good, at least for this issue.
Thank you.
Good. Thanks, Arthur. Bob Dubus, yes.
Arthur, as far as the west side or the east side goes.
You said, yeah.
That's actually a green area along the two buildings. It's kind of narrow, but there is a green area to absorb the water on that side.
And some of the downspouts do discharge that way, right? So that's
So I think
good.
it's a good.
I agree. I think some of it's being managed better than it was now, and so I'll take anything we can get associated with this. I know this is a very difficult site. The ground conditions aren't great. I'm not looking for soil
No, I think
boring that
it's,
results in all of that. I'm just looking
nice,
for something that will help improve conditions.
Nice compromise.
Yeah. I'm not looking for a 25-year storm event. I don't think that's really applicable here. This deals with, not all our storms are 25-year storm events. It's those everyday storm events that we get here that will be handled by this drywall type system when we refer to it as. So that's my suggestion. If the board agrees with that, I think I'm okay with it.
Charlene, yes.
Just a clarification, that,
Yes.
and I think I heard it, that the drainage calcs will be redone to,
I'm suggesting they just withdraw them, because I've been working on
Yep,
stormwater regulations updates for the board. My preference would be that all stormwater gets designed and managed according to the state stormwater handbook.
totally agree.
And this wouldn't follow that exactly, rather than deal
So
with
this
that
is
whole
a-
issue. Yeah, just take this off the table and treat it as a dry well. We don't usually look for calculations
Okay.
on dry wells.
Very good. In the staff report, proposed condition number 1, it has the plan dated April 6th and revised. Are we going to see a revised plan? Okay,
They're saying yes.
Yes.
The applicant is saying yes. So we'll use that date
yep.
when we vote to approve. Yes?
So this plan will be on your site plan, is that correct?
Yeah, this information will be on the full
And
size
and you'll
plan.
resubmit that with the corrected date?
Yes, with a
Okay,
revised date.
great.
With the corrected date. Okay, great. Also, I just wanted to comment on your memo, point 4. I think we can slightly revise the wording of that condition to make that clear. When we're talking about eliminating the temporary permit, it's a timing issue, and I think I'm going to say that the board will have no objection to allowing the temporary permit to be in place until such time that the permanent permit is granted. And Ryan, do you?
And my staff report actually updated the language than what was previously sent. I think I sent this just after the last meeting that we had, but since that time, I've massaged the language a little bit so that approval of the plan will eliminate the need for the applicant's temporary license. So we're not revoking anything through your
Right.
Yeah,
action.
in other words, yeah, it's not approval. We need it to continue until we actually construct it, which would be in the
Yes.
fall.
In the fall, you're saying?
Right, we're not
Yes.
gonna be able to do
Oh,
the
I
work
see.
for the outside seating
They
until
don't
the
have
fall.
enough time,
Given the
otherwise they're
calendar.
going to
Given
lose.
the
So Ryan, do you
calendar.
think we need to adjust the wording of that condition ever so slightly again? Given
No, I
that it
think-
will be the fall that the construction actually occurs. In other words, you want your temporary permit to extend through the entire
Yes,
summer
We want the
season.
temporary to extend to when
Yeah.
we start construction, actually.
Okay.
And so I think the language I read achieves that. It will just eliminate the
Right.
need for it, but it's not
Okay,
it does.
revoking your
Okay,
license in
great.
any way.
okay, great. So if applicant agrees with that,
Yeah,
That's the intent
we're
of
very
that
happy with
condition. Okay,
Ryan's
Great.
language.
I have one little
yes.
thing. Maybe I'm reading this wrong, but 7 says that you're trying not permit queuing outside the access door along the shared alley, but then the agreed is, and along alley as currently in practice. That's, I know I know that it's not the same place and it's done differently, but that's not how everybody's gonna interpret that. So could we just clean the language up so it means that what you, how you mean to queue the people in the alley?
Well,
No, they need
apparently
to
what happens
Send them to Main Street.
is that the line forms at the front door and runs
It goes
west
around the alley.
and goes down the alley.
Yes.
That's the way they've been doing it. So, but there will be no queuing by the outdoor seating, either into the parking lot or on the alley.
I think we don't really like the
Yeah, I
queuing
just-
in
But
the
you're
alley
gonna, if you
from
queue them
the
up Main Street, they're gonna be into the line for Bluefin, so you can't do that, because you're gonna have 2 lines on the sidewalk, and then you'll have an impassable sidewalk. I think we should, I agree with you tweaking the language so as not to mention the alley, but we have not discussed your front line, nor do I think we should.
Yeah, but because you have to put them somewhere.
Yeah.
So, but there won't be any queuing in the alley by
From
the,
the-
by the outdoor
from the
seating.
new, yes, from the
It's-
new construction.
When they're full, the ownership says, the operating team says, when the restaurant is full, which it happens occasionally in the summertime, all the doors except the front door are closed, the tavern door. So people can come in the bar side, they can leave by the other doors, but they can't go in except by the bar door. And that's how they control the number of people inside the building. So,
I might just take out that and along the alley.
okay,
Or just say, as currently is the practice.
Yep.
And just take out along the alley, and
yeah, we
it
will.
will not be as confusing.
I'll revise Ryan's latest language.
Yeah, Ryan will revise it, yeah, okay.
All right, yes, Arthur.
The other thing on condition 6, I thought that there was an understanding that we're not looking to have an 11 o'clock use of this outdoor space outside of the peak time of the season. And I thought that's how we settled on the 9 PM piece. I'm still supportive of that, and we can put a specific dates on it as a definition, but I'm not sure that we'd want to leave it at 11 PM, all year long. The other part of it is I think we should put a condition in that we revisit this. If there's gonna be noise and there's going to be, some impacts to the surrounding areas and there's complaints associated with it, then we revisit this and change the times completely. I think that there has to be a demonstration that this is gonna work in this location, and the only way you're gonna know that is you put a timeline in there. If it doesn't work, you change it, and we have the ability to do that. And unless we put a condition in on that, I'm not sure we're gonna have any control over it at all, or anyone's gonna have control.
I'm a believer in visiting next year on that, Art. Same thing,
We've done
1
that
year.
in the
1 year.
past, to give a one-year revisit of those conditions, and we've done that on other issues, on other site approvals in the past.
Yeah, that's fine.
Charlene?
Normally, I would agree with that, but they're not even gonna build it until the fall.
So then we do it a year after
I
it's
think you
built.
want a season in there.
Yeah, like
Yes,
I
a
agree.
year after
That's
it's
fine.
built.
If it's gonna be a fall construction and they'll use it the following season, that's fine. Then we'll do it sometime in fall of 2024 then.
Yes, we could say 1 year of use.
Well, Arthur, we're gonna be singing Christmas carols out there for crying out loud at
Yes,
11:15.
yes. So, yes, we can word it so that it's a year after construction.
Just bear in mind that this isn't something that we've dealt with on a regular basis.
No, I
And
understand.
We'll get experience on this as more people come
I
forward.
think the weather will be sort of self-policing here.
I think so.
It's possible. Yes, Megan?
Just to clarify, we did talk about 11 o'clock, sorry, allergies. We did talk about 11 o'clock last time, and I thought that was the consensus that we came to. So I'm a little confused as to what you're saying. Are you saying 11 in the summer, 9 in the winter?
That's
The
what,
condition was written that way, and that's what I remember. what
staff
we've seen.
report.
If you read the staff
Yeah, I
report
did,
condition,
but now I'm confused.
9
because-
PM off-season.
that is what
11
I
PM
understood, that we
in-season.
left it last time.
Oh,
Now, you can,
yeah, I don't
you can
recall.
you can scrutinize what is
But it's
off-season.
still
and
11
that.
in the season though, right? That's what the
yes,
staff report said.
that's correct.
Okay. I think I misunderstood what you said. I thought you were saying 9 all year.
No, no.
Okay.
I'm saying that just during those peak months, we can define what that is, and then during the non-peak months, it goes to 9 o'clock. That, I think that's
Well-
the starting point, and we'll see where it is. We'll revisit it in a year plus.
Well,
Here-
excuse me,
The applicant is requesting that we have 11 PM cutoff year-round.
and I reason why I believe that's reasonable. The reason why I think is reasonable is because as I just said, the weather itself will be self-policing. You know, principally, they want to provide an outdoor space where their patrons can smoke. They can't smoke inside.
Don't say it because they can't smoke in your outdoor seating.
Oh, okay, never mind then.
I was like, don't go there, you're gonna.
Well, then even more so will the weather be self-policing. And so that, but there will be times, when the weather is fair and people are gonna wanna be out there past 9 o'clock. So we'd like to leave it at 11 o'clock year-round, review it in a year, and if it's a problem,
Okay, I have 2 questions. One is I'm actually less concerned about the 9 or the 11 because I tend to agree that the weather is self-policing. However, what you said brought me to another question. Given that smokers can't hang out in this area, where are you going to put them?
wherever they go now.
They go in this area now.
No, but it's used for outdoor dining now.
Right, they don't.
Yeah, but it's not used for outdoor dining along that whole alleyway. You've got like outdoor dining over here, and you still have this like skanky little
Oh.
alley that people can.
All right, well, if they're smoking back there, they're not supposed to. But now it will be more formal, that there'll be staff there all the time.
Okay,
Whereas right now,
it's a free-for-all. I've been there.
well, whenever there's a line in the front, I always go in the back. I don't,
Well, you're special, but, okay.
that's what my mother said too.
Madam Chairman, that brings up
Yes,
one more
Mr.
question.
Davis.
There will be at least one member of the staff there at all times.
That's our understanding.
Right, and I think he's going to be licensed to carry.
Carry what? More.
Cigarettes.
That's yet to be determined.
So I would like to see that in the order of conditions, Madam Chairman. There will be somebody from on duty there at all times.
At the outdoor dining?
Yes.
The reason that I started that conversation was actually because, and I fully agree with Bob, was because I do have a problem with building an area that's just for smokers to hang out in the winter. Having
Okay, so-
been to the Squire a few times, I think if you put that area out there and give it the idea that, to which you are leaning a little, you're not gonna have that problem in the summer, because in the summer, it's gonna be full of people who wanna eat. My concern is at 11 o'clock at night, you're gonna have a bunch of my friends out there drinking and smoking. I could name a few of which you know quite well. And we don't really want that to happen. We don't need a regal seagull in the back of the Squire.
I don't think the rest of your members are familiar with that particular establishment.
So,
You get what I'm saying? So if
I
you
get what you're
police it,
saying.
then you're good.
yeah, the thing is, smoking is not permitted in that area. So we just have to yes, period, yes.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Charlene, did you have another comment, or Bob Dubus? Any other comments?
No.
Arthur, any more So,
Catherine, I
Yes.
did have one thing,
Yes.
and only because of my past experience in town planning, is that if there are noise issues, whether it's patrons, whether it's music, it's going to go before the Board of Selectmen. And it's going to, they're going to make sure they're not in violation of their common vic license or their all pouring license. They don't want to lose that.
Right.
So it's going to be monitored, and they're going to have a lot more than we will under site plan review. The selectmen have a lot more power
Okay.
as the liquor license authority. I'm assuming they are. I think they are, right?
I
I
believe so.
believe they are, yes, I believe.
Yes, they are.
Yes, yes. Yes, that's good. I think nevertheless, we can do our one-year review. We did do that, something like that, maybe Bob Dubus will remember, with Cumberland Farms. There were issues about the open hours, and we did, I think, a one-year review to make sure that there was no issues with the abutters regarding the open hours, and we did have them do restricted open hours. They wanted to be open 24 hours. So we have done this type of thing in the past, just to make sure there are no issues with the butters. Is that all right with the board? Yeah, okay, great. Yes.
So I think we have to formally continue
Continue
this.
it.
So
We do.
I move that we continue this to
Ca-
8th.
Point of order, so you
Yes.
don't have to formally continue this, it's not a public hearing, it's just a public meeting. And if you are in agreement about what the conditions are, and you don't feel like you need another meeting, you can direct staff to amend the conditions as discussed tonight for review and signature by the chair, unless you want to all collectively review the conditions of approval.
I'd feel better reviewing the conditions of the approval, plus also seeing the final plan.
Yeah.
And we'd like to
That's a
see
reasonable
our
point.
buddy Bill come back and give us a little what for.
I
You don't want the
agree with
rest
the
of us
other
to
board.
come back? Just-
Okay,
Yeah,
No,
I agree too.
you guys are all right.
just hoping to cancel
It's
that.
him we worry about.
No,
That's fair.
I agree with you, Ryan, but I think it's probably better that we
Okay.
look at this again. So, all right, so, but we do, don't we need, we do need to vote to continue to May 8th. We generally do that. So, yes, so please
So
make a
I move
motion.
that we continue this till May
I second.
Bob Wirtschafter,
8th. Bob, we're set to approve.
Art,
Art Spru, approve.
Warren,
Warren Chain approve.
Megan,
I reluctantly approve.
okay, Charlene.
Charlene Greenhalgh approve, and Stephanie, it's great to see you.
Bob Dubus, I approve, and I
Yes,
agree.
I also
See, hi,
approve.
Steph.
That we'll continue
We had to bring the ring
this
in.
matter to May 8th, and I think we'll be well prepared if you provide all the documents that we've discussed tonight.
In advance.
In advance, well in advance, I think we'll be well prepared to,
Great.
you know,
Thank you
finish
very
this
much.
matter.
Appreciate your help.
Thank you very much. Thank you. All right. Great. Great. So the next item on our agenda is an informal, we just wanted to include a little informal discussion on West Chatham Neighborhood Center. I think Ryan and Gloria are working to prepare more formal presentation regarding density and housing requirements, recommendations from their side on May 22nd. I think that's when we'll have our major discussion and review of West Chatham Neighborhood Center. That being said, there were a couple of issues brought up by Bob Wirtschafter and Art Spru, and Ryan and Gloria had a chance to take a look at them, although not Arthur's. And so we just wanted to present a summary to the board of what those issues were and what the staff recommendations are, or not formal recommendations, but what your thinking is on them.
Yes, so I think more generally than that, I was hoping to just say we had a really productive conversation with Bob last week. I think after the listening session and on March 27th, there was a lot of really good energy and ideas that came out of that. There was some really good public feedback. And so as staff are working to bring formal recommendations to you on the 22nd, if any other members also have comments or ideas that they want to share with staff, I wanted to invite you to do that now. We can reach out and try to clarify, make sure we understand where you're coming from. I think it was a really helpful discussion with Bob that we had around some of the density proposals. So I want to bring that more formally to you as a recommendation to the full board. But in the time between now and then, I would invite you to reach out to myself or to Gloria if you have particular ideas that you think we should focus on or any concerns that you have.
Yeah, and I think just, again, we wanted to clarify the formal, kind of a formal procedure. Please send your questions and issues to Ryan, copy the chair, and then we'll bring all the information back to the board for discussion with the whole board in public meeting, in open meeting. That's our formal procedure, all right? Good. So I think Arthur had some points, and we
Yeah,
could take a look at
I
those.
apologize. I must have been asleep at 11:30 in the morning. I completely missed this call on Thursday. I apologize for that. But if you could include the brief section that I was recommending on concept plans, I think that's, with the complexity of what I'm seeing happening here, it's just, it's an idea to start at the upper level of planning of what the applicant wants to do. It actually helps them and understand the board's point of view. It tells them to be all-inclusive, all the pieces, so that we can get the big picture, and then we can throw our ideas out at them. It's just a little bit more than just the informal site plan that we have right now, is because this is gonna be a little bit more complex with multiple structures perhaps on a site, which is not something that we normally deal with.
Right.
So if you can just include that, and then we will be available for the board members to see. I had language like this in my prior town where we formulated something very similar to what the West Chatham Neighborhood Centered zoning was, and it worked out very well for us. We put it into action, and it was very helpful to with the applicants who came forward. They heard about the nuances that we were interested in versus what, of course, we heard what they wanted in order to make the development work. And I think some of this is going to be the case with just about everything that we see out there, especially when we get into any type of density and housing units and stuff like that. I think there's going to be a back and forth with all applicants on that.
And I'd just add, based on our conversation earlier, that if you can, along with Gloria and Katie, consider whether that is best addressed as part of the bylaw or as part of our site plan review criteria. Yeah.
I think there's a couple of different ways we could approach incorporating that concept, so we're just talking about that, and we'll put that in a recommendation on the 22nd.
Great, sounds good. While we're on West Chatham, any other points from board members that you would like staff to work on before our discussion on the 22nd? Yes, Warren.
Well, I had 4 things that I think have been talked about, but the draft proposal that I've seen doesn't necessarily address them in the way that I understood that the board had indicated. The first was, I know we had some discussion about having special permits, and the board being, planning board being the special permit granting authority, which would provide some flexibility as to kinds of things that we liked or disliked and so on with respect to having flexibility that was also discussed. And I think that's something which I thought was a genius idea, and I'd like to see it pursued. I think also that as I have reflected on permits, special permits, that we ought to give some thought as to, for future members of this board, if they're the permit granting authority, or the ZBA if they are, as to what considerations ought to be included in order to receive a favorable permit, granting of a permit, such that you're not left with, it's no more deleterious to the neighborhood than what's there before. For example, we would like, if there is a building demolished in the area, that whatever is developed somehow to be representative of the principles and the guidance and the zoning that we would, that we're coming up with for that area. Exactly how that goes and what that guidance would look like, I'm not prepared to suggest, but I do think that we ought to think about it before anybody is asked to grant a special permit in this area, such that there'll be some very clear guidance as to what are the requirements they ought to be considered to grant a permit. Let's see. Yeah, and the last 2 points where, I had understood all the way along that our intent was that whatever density we came up with, and I guess it starts minimum of 8, that there would be a portion of that that would be required to be affordable attainable. I'm never quite sure what that even means, but that's what I think I would like to see. And I know where I am is I'd like to see a minimum of 8 per acre, 2 of which have to be affordable attainable, and then you can get a bonus of, for each unit you agree to build as affordable attainable, you can build one that isn't, up to a maximum of 12 per acre. That's what I would like to see, so that there's an assurance that you will have 2 out of 8, or 25% are affordable, attainable. And if you take the incentives, you get up to a third. And how that works its way through, if you have sites that, are not an acre, I'm not sure of, but at least I would like to see very clearly and understand what is in there with respect to mandating the construction of affordable attainable. And also related to that, it really is not permitting payments in lieu of. I mean, the intent is to build them. Now, I don't know how we do that without, breaking the rules somehow elsewhere. But I think that's an important thing. Going through all of this to decide how many should be affordable attainable means nothing if all you do is write a check and build another couple of $1 million condos. And then
I have specific recommendations on those on the 22nd, and an argument in favor of payment in lieu that will be interesting to see what your, your take is on it.
You want my vote now?
Wait till you've heard it.
Yeah, there's quite a few dimensions, I think, from having heard.
And also then, we had discussed, no?
Maybe let me finish.
Sorry.
Having some discussions with Gloria and Ryan about this, there's quite a few dimensions that need to be considered vis-à-vis density, vis-à-vis attainable, vis-à-vis affordable. And I think we do need to let them digest this with their professional expertise and come back to us on the 22nd with some recommendations that we'll consider very carefully and very thoroughly. So just wanted to comment. There's more to this than meets the eye. But
Well,
please go ahead.
I didn't mean to say that, as a diplomat among us, that, I'm willing to listen to anything. I just would like to have the maximum confidence that in coming up with whatever density we come up with, that a developer is actually going to build something that's affordable and attainable, that's all. And where my head is at is 8, 2 of which are, and then you get a bonus up to 12, and you could get to 33% of the units. The last area, which I know we had discussed, was the, and staff comments had related to, was short-term rentals. I know we had talked about, there'd be a prohibition against rentals less than 182 days. And, my support for that idea was that you shouldn't prohibit somebody that wants to have a full-time resident, permanent resident in Florida for tax purposes from renting their apartment. Well, that would mean they could rent it, they have to be gone for 6 months. So the other 6 months, minus a little bit, 182 days, whatever, would mean that anybody renting it would be a permanent resident of Chatham, albeit a short-term rental. But I'm not wedded to that concept, and I just would like it to be revisited and made clear such that the board has a unified opinion as to how we ought to address subletting, and whether subletting is permitted or rental has to be only by the owner, prohibiting subletting. We would have hopefully, a short-term rental regulation that would cover these units, any units in West Chatham Neighborhood Center.
We do as of today. The board passed there.
Okay, well then, that would, I think, perhaps have some relevance as to, what the final wording of that is with respect to this issue for restricting the length or the ability to rent who and subletting and so on. And so I just am hoping that that's brought up and there is a consensus. And that's it.
Okay, great. Thank you, Warren. Bob, yes.
Well, it occurs to me that I don't think the rest of the board heard the issues that I had raised, so
Yes, that's correct.
do want to at least discuss those
Yes.
with the rest of them.
Yes.
So, first of all, I heard a valid argument from, I can't remember if it was from Elaine Gibbs or from Gloria Freeman about a park area, and it occurred to me that we do not really have a way to accommodate parks or parking. If we have a fixed 8, units per acre, how do we accommodate any of those public good areas that need to be part of that? So, I was trying to figure out how do we get that into our calculations, and it seemed to me that having a fixed 8 as a minimum, it would be problematic in that respect, and that we probably need to drop to 4 and 8, but we can drop to 4 if you do some of these other public good provisions. I also thought that the first unit needs to be affordable or attainable, and then you can build 3 more under Warren's argument. There's probably some issues that we did discuss about whether that can happen in it. There were also some issues about having affordable, it will, as a requirement, would slow down the development process. I asked whether allowing for attainable would have those same restrictions, so I'm anxious to hear about that. So those were generally my issues in terms of how do we do this in a way that, we have some flexibility as to what we see that isn't pigeonholing everybody into 12. And what do we do when somebody has a commercial component on their property in terms of what does that mean for the rest of the acreage there, or even the units above commercial? So we don't really have a lot of guidance on a density under those circumstances either. So those were the issues that I had raised.
Yeah. So, and also I just wanted to mention, there is an issue was brought up by one of the members of the public about infrastructure. And we did have a review previously of the proposed West Chatham Neighborhood Center bylaw, was reviewed by Dr. Duncanson, and he said that, under the current proposal at that time, that there was no problems with water or sewer infrastructure. However, Ryan reminded me that that was at a level of 4, density of 4 units per acre. That was a previous iteration of this draft bylaw. So we do need to re-review that. We do need to take another look at density, is what I'm saying. Also, the issue was brought up about the 2014 visioning study that was done by Cape Cod Commission. And at that time, it was recommended that there would be some increased density in the neighborhood centers and in West Chatham Neighborhood Center. But again, I think Ryan reminded me that it was 4 units per acre. So the board, rightly so, is very concerned about the housing crisis on Cape Cod and in Chatham. And I think that is what motivated us to look at higher numbers of units per acre for density. And I think that is a very laudable concern, and we still need to maintain that, but we do need to evaluate it carefully vis-à-vis previous recommendations, vis-à-vis infrastructure, vis-à-vis, what Gloria and Ryan will be producing for us as recommendations for attainable and affordable. I think there's a lot of ways that we can accomplish best what we want to accomplish, but we might need to revisit the issues. Okay? Any other questions? Yes, Warren?
Madam Chairman, you remind me as well, we had discussions regarding the prohibition of single-family homes.
Right.
And the newest members of the board have suggested that maybe we ought to allow that. And I think it's an open question. I'm personally against it. There's plenty of single-family housing already, and all of it can be redeveloped and remain single-family housing. But I'm open to the question, but I do think it's something which we need to, again, bring up and make certain that we're all in agreement as to what the rules ought to be.
Yeah.
But again, there's plenty of single-family homes in Chatham, and where I sit, we're trying to create a place where we can create something that would enhance diversity and be consistent with the goals as I understood them to be with the West Chatham, with the neighborhood center concept.
Okay. Yes, Ryan, did you want to comment on that? No? Okay. Yeah, we can take a look at that. Also, as I've mentioned a few times, the board is considering these, which we won't do now, but in future, creating these transitional zones, especially for West Chatham, right next door, especially to the east, which might allow for greater density, residential density, but we won't include the commercial component. And that may be an ideal place to include areas where smaller single-family homes can be built. So that's an idea to address that, but, it has been brought up by members of the public as well, so we can certainly revisit that. We might also want to revisit the boundaries, just take a look again at the boundaries that we've defined. I think that might have been, as I recall, brought up by a member of the public. The board did change the boundaries. We included the properties to the north and added some properties to the east, but we did that very deliberately. Any other issues? Yes, Arthur.
Just going back to what Warren said on single family, if there's any analysis that's going to be done, you said you might revisit the 4 dwelling units per acre. If there is a component of that analysis going on, and I think you should assess that, okay, there's going to be a possibility. Can you accommodate a smaller lot with more single-family dwellings on that periphery piece? That's more than what's zoned right now, so that is a higher density in that area, even if it's not part of the immediate West Chatham Neighborhood Center. So if you're going to do an analysis, you might as well look at that or this as a whole picture, because does one take away from the other? If we have limited infrastructure to support it, where do we want to put it? Do we want to put it into the West Chatham multifamily dwelling, or do we want to allow some more single-family on the periphery? And you can't answer that until you get some number crunching. So I would suggest you just do that at the same time, and then at least we'll have data that we can decide.
Okay. Yeah, that sounds good. Yeah. Any other points? And this is, as I say, just, and you are, if things come to mind, you're welcome to send those questions into Ryan, and please copy me, and then Ryan will evaluate them and bring them back to the May 22nd meeting for consideration by the whole board with staff recommendations. Yes, Charlotte?
Just the May 22nd meeting, as I recall.
Yes?
A while ago, it was more than a week ago, I may not remember right, is a work session
Yes.
for us.
Yes.
You're going to make a presentation, and we're going to delve in as a work session.
Yes,
Perfect.
correct, yes. And then after our work session, as we always do, there'll be an opportunity for public comment.
We did receive an application for an informal site plan, so that will also be on the agenda, but, the. Yeah, I think maybe do that first.
Yeah, okay. Any other points from the board? I will take public comment, as we always do, if there's no other points from the board. If there are any members of the public who would like to make comments on any matter that we've discussed tonight or on West Chatham, I don't see any hands raised. I'll give you a few moments in case you're muted. I don't see any hands raised. I did just want to we'll move on to Chairman's comments. I just wanted to mention to the board this whole issue of last-minute submissions. We generally don't accept them, except in the case when, for example, we've requested additional information, the applicant is simply submitting exactly what we've requested, so that it's making the application complete. And so in that case, we might accept it, but in general, we don't. But in discussing with Ryan, we just wanted to clarify the policy of when we could, up to what point can we accept submissions. You receive your packets on the Wednesday before the Monday of the meeting, correct? That doesn't give a lot of time for last-minute submissions. Arthur, did you want to make a comment?
Well, I do recall that we had this discussion a few years back.
We did, yes.
And we were concerned as board because we had very limited time to take
Yes.
a look at them, especially if we weren't happened to be around on those few days beforehand.
Correct.
I thought that there was a practice, and this is before your time, Ryan, where we didn't want them just by the Wednesday. They were supposed to be submitted like
That's
the
true.
Friday before.
That's true. It was the Friday before the Friday before
Right,
the
exactly.
Monday. Yes,
That was what we started to go to, and that helped tremendously, because then they could be made available for a whole week beforehand and give board members. I have no problem if you want to go back to that practice. I'm fortunately around a little bit more now than I used to be, so Wednesday still works for me, but at the same time, it gives me a little bit more time to take a look at it.
I just wanted to mention that the reason we did the Friday before the Monday, at a certain point, we did change it by vote to the Wednesday before the Friday before the Monday, because staff was having trouble getting in all the materials that they needed to prepare the packet in time, to prepare the agenda in time. So that was why it was brought up to the board again, and we decided that as long as we got the packets by the Wednesday before the Friday before the Monday, it would be all right. So if that's still working for everybody, as I'm hearing from Ryan, it's still hard to get everything in on time from the applicants.
Well, and it
Please go
depends
ahead.
on the amount of time they've given themselves between meetings, right? I mean, if they have a meeting on Monday and the new information is required that Friday
Yeah.
to meet this policy, that's a quick turnaround time for them. So I think if there's a lot of information the board is looking to see in a continued meeting, I think we need to look a month out to give them time to do it.
Yeah, okay.
Well, then I think the burden needs to go back on them. If they can't get it in time, then the meeting, the continuation meeting has to be delayed for the subsequent date. I don't think the burden should be on our board. I think it has to be on the applicant and
I
their
agree.
team.
I agree, yes. Mr. Dubus?
Arthur, you don't have any problems if we had, say, a 4-day window on something very small was electronically given to you, and then in paper at the meeting?
There's always exceptions, and
No,
I think
I'm
that's
asking
going to be
just
an occurring thing. I think it depends on to what degree it is. If it's,
Oh, I agree, but
if it's
I mean,
an
I thought
updated
this
plan or
was
revision.
rather a small idea with the drainage.
Right.
And a couple other things. Electronically, if they, well, I'm just citing that.
Right,
You know, it wasn't something that was a mind boggling or anything like that. So if they would have given you that 3 days in advance, you wouldn't have.
To me, I think that's where a chair makes decisions working with staff about, can you actually put a response? Can you get your comments in time, because they have other agenda
Right.
items too.
I know,
If it
I agree
doesn't-
with you.
If it doesn't work, it doesn't work. So I think it's on a one-off, yeah, you just ask those questions.
Yeah, because also staff has to have time to review it and then send it out to the board electronically. I mean, right now, if we get our packets the Wednesday before the Friday, before the Monday meeting, I don't like saying that we could get additional information on the Friday before the because that's a weekend.
No, I don't either. I
Yeah.
think if you can't take the time to get it in on time,
Yeah.
then you wait a week or two.
So is the board, so am I hearing that basically the Wednesday, it has to be in by the packet?
No, I don't think that's what we heard. What we heard was it has to be in before the Friday, a week, a weekend, you know, 10 days before the meeting, it has to be in. And then we get our packets on Wednesday.
Oh,
That's two different dates. They need theirs in on the Friday so that we can get our packets on the Wednesday. That's what
So,
I.
but what I'm asking the question is, say there's another submission, an additional submission by an applicant. We've got our packets, and now they want to submit something in addition to the packet. And I'm saying, so I'm asking you, can we allow that at all?
I think you maintain your discretion
Yeah.
and just continue the item. I mean, almost the way we started off tonight.
Yeah, yes, because if it is something that we've requested and it wasn't in by the time the packet was distributed to us, but then Thursday, they submitted and it's all squeaky clean, we could accept it, I think.
I think you have to accept it. Like, we
Yeah.
can't turn anything away.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, it's just a matter of whether or not you act on it and whether or
Yeah.
not you feel you've had time to review it,
Okay.
to act on it. So,
Yeah.
you know, I would love to have everything the Monday before, 1 week in full advance, so I can review it in 2 days and then get it to you in your packets with any questions.
Right,
And then beyond that, you maintain your discretion for last-minute submissions that they haven't.
right, okay, Charlene,
Having sat in Ryan's seat for 33 years,
yes,
I would, God bless you for willing to do it that Monday before, but you need to give yourself more time, and you know that. So,
if we need more time, then we should make it.
but what Bob said is, you know, the 10 days before, I think is somewhat reasonable, but it has to be in by a certain time on that Friday. It can't be at 4 o'clock when you're closing. It's got to be no later than, say, noon on the 10 days before that Friday, because it's not fair to staff.
Yeah,
To
no, I
try
agree.
and.
Can't
pull
bring it on
everything
Friday anyway,
together.
we're closed.
Well, whatever day.
So it's got to be by 10 o'clock Friday or you're out of here.
Yes,
Okay, I've been raising my hand for a while, so now I'm just gonna talk. I feel like we should defer to you, Ryan. I mean, this is your problem. You're the one that's gonna hear it from 90% of the applicants who are not happy with whatever we've chosen. But ultimately, you have to hear both sides. So yeah, she needs the time, but she's also gonna hear the complaining. So I think it's up to you to decide.
I mean, this isn't an initial application, right? These are
Exactly.
supplemental pieces.
Yeah.
You don't need the same amount of time to review them, right? You know, a couple of days in order to get it into your packets is sufficient for me.
Initial application, I agree, we need time, it
Absolutely.
needs to be very strict,
Yes,
but with additional pieces,
well, we can, additional, I'm actually asking the board I think we're discussing two different things here. I think that's what's causing the confusion, a little confusion, if I may say so. I think you have a very clear deadline as when you need to receive things to get on the agenda for a certain date and to get the board's packets to us by that Wednesday before the Monday meeting. You have very clear deadlines for applicants.
Yes.
So that's one thing. There's a second thing, which is kind of what happened here. When an applicant submits supplementary materials at the last minute, and I'm asking the board, when are you comfortable receiving that electronically from staff? And this is my opinion. We get our packets on the Wednesday. Our meeting is on the Monday. There's actually not a lot of time in there to receive anything supplemental by email, you know, and yeah.
having been on the zoning board and I'm used to getting stuff like an hour before, so I'm good, but
Yes,
Well, I
Yes.
just think it's our discretion,
Yes.
as we did today, that no,
Yes.
it was too much material, it came too late, and people had not looked at it. And I don't know whether it's a majority that says, no, we need to move on, or if one person says, I didn't have enough time, that we don't move on. I would basically say if everybody isn't ready to go, we should not go. I don't
would
think
agree
it's a
with that.
majority.
yes, I would agree with that. For submissions after the packet has been issued, I would agree with what you said. If any board member has not had time to review adequately the additional supplemental submission, I think that we would postpone taking action.
So
Yes,
I'd
Arthur.
like to raise a different, unless we're not done with that,
I
but,
think Arthur had a comment.
That's all right, go ahead.
so what happens when the material is not the applicants, but is staff, other staff? We get the street stuff at 4 hours before. What's the rule on that stuff?
You mean like DPW?
Yeah,
and
yeah.
yes, which we haven't gotten a lot of responses recently. Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
we get stuff 2 hours before there. Obviously, we're gonna take them when we get them, but do we have a right to hold up the applicants because our staff hasn't?
Actually, they're usually, Bob, they're usually minor comments.
I agree.
And if it comes from the town, you're not gonna argue with it, and you're not gonna hold the applicant up. If we're waiting for the fire chief to give us a recommendation, or the DPW to give us a recommendation, I think that we can handle that right then and there. I mean, I hope they don't keep doing it that way, but I don't think it's anybody's fault except for our fault,
It is our fault.
and not our fault, but as a town fault. So I think we should take that with a grain of salt.
Ryan and I discussed this briefly this afternoon. I think my understanding of our general procedure as a board is that we do need certain other departments to sign off on every site plan review that we do. We are supposed to get Dr. Duncanson's okay. We are supposed to get DPW to sign off. And that's been our practice, yeah.
Sign off or to comment
To
on?
comment on.
Comment on, because
To
I see
comment
those
on.
things as very different.
Yes,
Yeah.
no, to comment on. And if, it is also the case, if they have serious reservations, the planning board does have to review that and take that into consideration in our approval. And in general, we feel that until those reservations are resolved, whether they come from Dr. Duncanson or DPW, we cannot give our approval to a site plan. They need to be resolved in some way. Health Department, Fire Chief, we do need to hear those also. But I think the key referrals that we need are Dr. Duncanson and DPW. And as I say, if there are reservations, we need to resolve those. Sometimes in the past, to my memory, we've conditioned our approval provided that all of the stipulations requested by DPW director are met, something like that. We've added a condition like that. So those coming in at the last minute, again, it might be conditional if there's a lot to consider.
Well, and I think that, from staff's perspective, the practice of sending out applications for departmental comments hasn't changed.
Right.
There have been staffing changes that have maybe invited some challenges there, but, if there's an issue that the board is concerned about, you just don't move forward until you feel like that's been properly addressed by your staff, right? And so if there's a site with significant stormwater issues, then we can be more aggressive about chasing down staff, but typically they don't respond if there's no concern, right? We hear about the ones where there's concerns.
Right. If we could remind them, even just an email that says, I have no concerns, that really helps us know that they have no concerns.
Yep.
Yeah, that would be great.
We'll do our best.
Yeah, no, I know it's not easy.
Your municipal staff are very busy.
Yeah, no, I
so-
understand. I understand. Yes, Arthur, did you want to?
Well, just to give you some of my exposure and experience on my previous board on this, we did a lot with rules and regulations. I'm promoting some of that in the future. But one of the rules and regulations that we had is an applicant submitted a packet in. We received their packet. The board reviewed it and said, we accept it. And until the board accepted it, the clock didn't stop ticking. Because if there was incomplete information based on what it said in the rules and regulations or what the submission was supposed to have, we sent it back and said, submit this, and then we'll accept your package. So you can get real sticky on this if you want to. So I would say that it's, I have no problem with the process that's been going on, but I think once we set something, I think it's important we stick with it. Applicants start to understand that that's what they have to do. And they'll correct their work rather than we making adjustments to accommodate them. I think the one-offs have to happen on a very limited basis, very small, non-issues. And I do like about having all the input from all the other departments. I think that that's very important, because if you're going to write conditions, you should write conditions that would adopt whatever issues or concerns that some of those other departments have. And those should be part of the conditions, whether it's site plan, subdivision, or whatever. That's what I thought.
And, some of the challenge in this is that if you're dealing with special permits, there are statutory timeframes surrounding special permits. Site plan review has no formal recognition under 40A, right? So we're inventing our own rules about these things. So it gets a little bit squishy, but I agree that there are practices the board can adopt to tighten things up.
Yeah, good, okay, great. Yes, Megan?
Do we have repeat offenders? I'm not trying to be mean. I'm just saying that if you have a specific concern with a specific repeat offender, which I know can sometimes happen, perhaps we address it that way.
Believe me,
Well, there
we
wouldn't be
have.
anybody coming to see us, because they're all repeat offenders.
Well, there's one that's less of a repeat offender. Perhaps we could.
Yeah, we have, but, sometimes habits are difficult to change. But I agree that it's a better practice from our side to be more demanding that everything is complete, and that we just can't take action till it is complete. And then it is the responsibility of the applicant to make sure that we have all the complete information that we've requested. And I think that'll make our process much cleaner, and also make staff's work easier. In my experience, and I'm sure you've experienced this, that when an applicant comes and everything is in order, it literally takes no time at all for us to give our site plan approval. It's such a big difference. So that's also in the applicant's best interest.
And we typically have had staff meetings with the applicants ahead of their filing in order to ensure that those applications are complete.
I know. It's just not quite a perfect world.
I'd like to move the
quite just
question.
yet. Yes. Did you want to make a motion?
Somebody's getting ready for town meeting.
Okay. Yes, I think we can move on, and I would ask for a motion to adjourn.
I move that we adjourn this
Yes.
meeting.
I second it.
All
Thank
right.
you.
Bob Wirtschafter,
Bob Wirtschafter, approve.
Art,
Art Sprue, approve.
Warren,
Warren Chain, approve.
Megan,
Megan Story, approve.
Charlene,
Charlene Greenhalgh, approve.
Bob
Bob
Dubus.
Dubus approves. Thank you.
Mrs. Catherine Halpern, I also approve that we adjourn, and please note the time as 6:55. Thank you, everybody, for your participation, and enjoy the rest of the evening.